Hi everyone. Today I will present you my presentation. Um, it's called Education in Humanitarian Emergencies, Artistic Response through the Artistic Biography with Young People in Iraq and Syria. Um, the summary, so I will begin by an introduction, then the conceptual framework, then I will present my case study methodology, then the results and the limit and bias, and to conclude by a discussion. My context is about the expansion of Islamist groups and numerous conflicts in Iraq and Syria from since 2011 and caused a lot of different type of wars and forced displacement and a lot of people living in camps and who are between waiting an emergency. It's important to say that there are a lot of NGOs and international organizations which are working on the ground in the humanitarian field in a lot of different clusters, child protection, psychosocial health, and education. And in those humanitarian action, there are also some artistic practices as sports or games. We can, because we focus in art practices in our field, in our case study too. So we focus on artistic practices and two different types of programs: the health-based artistic approach and the culture-based artistic approach. We are focusing more on the culture-based artistic approach through the education field. About our conceptual framework, we work on resilience, which is something that we are working for. The resilience is come from the Latin language and from resilienza, which is jump back or bounce back too. At a collective level, the resilience is the ability of community members to adapt positively and work cohesively towards common goals in order to overcome a situation of collective suffering and adversity. We work on the culture of resilience, which is a system that focuses on the strengths, the assets, and the protective factors of the individuals and groups involved. There are two central concepts of resilience: the collective problem solving and the creativity. So, our projects that are working in the scientific analysis focus on those two different sides: the artistic problem and process of artistic creation, and the development of social cultural skills. About the resilience, we use a didactic device, which is something that we work on with the facilitators and the children, the youth in our case. The artistic biography, the biography first, it's a biography, which is the writing of the life through artistic creations, aim to develop resilience and autonomy through the narration of individual and collective life experiences. The themes of our concept of artistic biography are the identity, the culture, and environment. Environment is the spaces, and we work through the process of awareness and openness with those themes. Why a artistic biography? It's to engage in a common biographical narrative and to insert it in an original collective work with the young people and the educators. A joint action in our theoretical framework is to produce joint action between the facilitators and the youth. the process of solving the artistic problem in the artistic biography that we try to do with the youth and the facilitators, work as consider that there are things which are already there, and that the problem as an environment, it's the set of resources and material and cognitive constraints that are present in the didactic situation. So we'll try to see how far the youth are empowered to take they're already there to solve the artistic problem. Finally, in our conceptual framework, there is the creative process. Quickly, there are 5 steps. First, the youth or the people who are making a creative process need to identify the problem, the artistic problem. Then, to stopping at it as a suspension or letting something come to you in the face of the problem posed, you will see. And then decomposing the different tasks to observe the resilience, and then developing an investigation by experiencing the risks of non-elucidation and to adapt a creative response. And finally, to attempt to the reconstitution process of a problem solving. It's a question to be aware of what is happening to you when you try to make a response, an artistic response. So to do so, we try to see how far the presence were there. A presence, we consider presence as a resilience and try indicator. And the presence attempt to grasp the thing itself and make resilience an action as an observable and deliverable reality located in the immediacy of the present moment. So we create the concept of resilience presence. Our main objective is to propose indicators of young people on try into resilience when implementing artistic biography activities, into, of course, seeing what is happening. Our case studies was in Iraq, in Kirkuk in Iraq, and we spent 2 months with the Foundation Terre des Hommes in Switzerland, and we worked in different places in Kirkuk where there are a lot of displaced persons in the Kurdish lands. The Kirkuk camps are special because there is an important security context, and there are semi-closed camps. People can't go out when they want. There are no work, no occupation for young people. It's quite difficult to live there, of course. And there are half of the inhabitants of the camp who are under 18 years old. The case study, again, so the Terre des Hommes Foundation created a youth program, which is a kind of comprehensive youth project for male and female into camps. It's a part of a project dedicated to the arts according to the coaches. And they are an artist trainer. I was an artist trainer, and I spent 17 days to make that training, and I stayed there for 1 month and 2 months in Kirkuk. The device, so it's 7 workshops, 4 facilitators, so 7 workshops with the youth, 4 facilitators, and with boys. There were also, of course, with girls, with youth, female, but we didn't make the research for many reasons. 50 young people on a voluntary basis between 15 and 25 years old, and we made the observation of the first project that the facilitator was unrolling during 3 weeks. The question I had was how to transform an ordinary place, the caravan where the activities were taking place, a place inhabited and habitable by young people. In other words, it was to make young people aware of their relationship to their own identity, to their common culture, and to the space to which they were belonging. The case study, quickly, it was there were different phases of the device painting our caravans. The first one was sharing collective stories of our path, 2 sessions of 2 hours. The second was making a biography of our lives. It was 1 session of 2 hours. The third one was linking our life to a larger whole, so it was a session of 2 hours. And the fourth one was ensuring artistic biographies through painting on the caravans. The results were very interesting because it was difficult to understand how the youth were considering and what could be different from what we did with them. But we thematized the resilience presence by the analysis during our observations of the activities with the youth. The 3 themes are first the involvement in the work so we can see the involvement in the work, the involvement of the youth, with a step-by-step process, the project process, with the commitment through the biography and resilient illustrations, the sketches and the collective narrations also that we did with storyboard I will show you. And the second theme is clearly the recognition by the coaches, which is important as a try into resilience. So it's important to have a participatory storytelling process. We need also, as a coach, to make illustration and presentation of their biographies, and also to make elaborations of the final product based on the initial productions. So self-recognitions in the collective work, we can see that through the consistency of stories with proven situations, the traces of resilience capacity in caravan narratives also, and the cooperation and joint action at the final elaboration, of course, between the coaches and the youth. I will give an example for each theme. So in the involvement in the work, in this illustration, we can see drawings in a sheet of paper made by a young person representing biographical elements. So we can see identity, culture, and environment. These youths can rely on his past and projecting himself in those elements in the camp, and he proposed to that this space in these camps, the hostile camps, can be from his life. So he involved himself. The recognitions by the coach. So I propose you 2 illustrations. The first one, it's an excerpt from a storyboard and projection in a group of the groups in the stories, a kind of flashback. So maybe you can't see it clearly with the pencil, but there is a flashback where the youth are singing and dancing the traditional song um, of of what they knew before and who they are, what are the parts of their identity. The third illustration is an excerpt from a storyboard and projection of groups in stories. It represents a draft storyboard made by a coach to help understand the trigger of the collective story. In the top right corner, the circled star and arrow represent the trigger that follow a scene visibly taking place in the desert. There are dunes, and a dromedary. And finally, the self-recognition in the collective work. So, two things. For two examples, the illustration 4 show a young person making a first base, a drawing in the caravan, and the first one show us the first phase of painting in a caravan, the environments. So the first one, so this youth is equipped with a pencil. He draws a palm tree, a biographical element of the environment. This is a first base that will be completed by painting. The palm tree is an important part of the Iraqi landscape. It was therefore drawn by several groups of young people. It was then integrated into the narrative and then used in the drawings of the caravan. For the second one, the seventh one, represents a fresco composed of several paintings on a facade of the caravan. The different scenes correspond to several landscapes imagined by the young people. They are natural landscapes found in the countryside. The elements are green, the grass, the trees, the flowers, and other vegetation. A clear blue river appears central in a quiet landscape. I would say far from the camp, the reality of the camp. In the second one, there are also large red and pink flowers and birds flying around the flowers. These drawings contrast with the beige, stony, and dusty space of the bright colors. They also contrast with the destroyed houses they left in the hands of the jihadists. These drawings are resilient because they renew with a lost or hoped for campaign. They do not show a melancholy with indicators of times gone by or even a break with an imaginary ideal. These landscapes are made theirs, the youth ones, because they have been chosen and worked on because they represent them and tell the story of their common and legitimate culture. They have a meaning that contributes to their well-being. Indeed, it is this landscape that shelter them outside in these camps, in these caravans, dedicated to them and which have the vocation to be hospitable to them. So quickly, I will make some limits of this presentation of this work. We advanced some results which cannot be extrapolated to other situations. There are no measurement of the impact of what might be the form of resilience observed over the long term. There were a lot of security and organizational constraints, and it does not report on the exchange between the artist trainer and the coaches. Also, there is a lack of mastery of artistic techniques by the team, and finally, the participatory or cooperative relationship and the academic culture, who are also some which could be considered as constraints. About the bias, we there were not individual follow-up, and also particularly limited material and tools for data collection and analysis. There is also a limited consideration of the social political context in this analysis, and there is no specific preliminary analysis of the relationship of young people to artistic practices. And we could also talk about the individual path and family also. Maybe to conclude, or to open to the discussion, we found 4 axes to be questioned in order to model the application of presence in our context of forced displacement and war sitting. First, it inhabiting the camp. The presence and the physical ensuring that allows us to inhabit the space is particularly symbolic, and at the same time the central problem in our context. So we need to talk about that. We need to make a creative process talking about those things. Second thing would be to be in the present, because they are waiting in the emergency, and it leads to long periods of nothingness and with tensions. The third one would be working with and on emotions, to know more about what is it to be happy and why and how. So emotions are often in restraints. Relationship and joint action are conditions for developing emotional presence. We can make it at school. We can make it during educational practices and artistic practices. And the fourth one, I would say, belonging to a larger whole. We need to make the youth feel that they belong to something. It is a matter of inserting oneself into a larger whole and feeling that one belongs to it by creating together something meaningful. So there are ways, as we did, collective work and project forms, and so the fourth point that I would that we need to theorize, I think, in this presence concept. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm ready to answer to your questions. Thank you so much.